Arrow Season 2, Episode 2, titled Identity. Now, this episode I really enjoyed because, with it being titled Identity, it really played on the fact that, Oliver has to deal with being both Oliver Queen and the vigilante, and not only being the vigilante, but being, the new hero vigilante who doesn't actually kill people. So in this episode, we get to see him try to, be the best of both, and that takes its toll, just like it did, in season one. But in this, of course, it comes down to the wire, and he has to choose, what do I do? Do I be, Oliver Queen, the philanthropist, or sort of be a philanthropist and try to help the city, in the public's eye, or do I be, do I stay as the vigilante and do what I do best and stop these criminals and get them put in jail so that they can't keep stealing, all of this medicine that these people need. And in the end, of course, he chose to be the vigilante because, he knew that would help more than just, being on TV and saying, hey, I'm here, look at me do this. And even though, that would help the city, obviously him doing that would be a much slower paced action compared to doing what he did, which was, fight people and beat them up and have Diggle, you know, well, he tried to, take the drugs to the hospital. But, I thought it was a really good episode. It introduced, the alderman who seems like he might be sort of, you know, well, he kind of just torched Oliver, when they're outside the hospital. And then, of course, he does it when Oliver doesn't show up for his own event. So this guy seems like, he'll be in the series, of course. He's pretty much the spokesperson of the Glades for now. And he's going to kind of be Oliver's, I guess, real life opponent, where he has to deal with this guy just destroying him in the media, saying, he doesn't care about the city. He's not here to help. So I like his character. I mean, obviously he seems kind of mean because, that's just his character. He's against, the main character, the guy we like. But you can just understand from his point of view, he's just a guy trying to help tons of people who, lost family members, lost home, friends, things like that. And he's trying to help them rebuild and, rebuild an actual part of the entire city and, get everyone back on track to the lives that they knew before. So you can understand why he's so angry at Oliver, who, like you said, is, just an elitist guy who doesn't care about the people and just, goes around trying to throw money at things. So you can understand from his point of view, where he's really coming from. So I do like his character, overall, and I really like him as an addition to the series. And I do hope he comes in and, as a recurring character, because I think it would be, pretty good drama just for Oliver to have to deal with that as such a, invasive portion of his life. It would be a lot more compared to season one, where really all he had to do was say, I'm Oliver and then I'm the vigilante, and just kind of separate himself. He'd really have to work hard to be Oliver, because now he's taking over his family's company, and he's not just the son who came back to life, who can pretty much just be who he was before. He has to step up and be mature Oliver Queen, who he really is now, but he has to be that, even in the public eye, because he's the CEO, so he has all of these responsibilities, and it won't be as simple as act like the regular playboy I used to be, where my only responsibility is just have my friend run my club for me and then be the vigilante. He has to own his company, help his entire city, and help so many things as Oliver Queen now and as a vigilante. So do we really get to see him have to deal with such a tough balance compared to in season one, where it was just make sure that guy doesn't see me without my hood up, and that's pretty much it. But I really enjoyed the episode. We also got to see more of Felicity. I loved her. Every episode, she always has that one line where she says something and it has just such a different meaning compared to what she meant to say when she says, and I love spending nights with you. And, she did like the count, and it was funny because Oliver just looked at Diggle like, it's like she's kind of losing it. I love that too. And Diggle saying like, hey, your cover story could be worse. My cover story is I'm his black driver, and I thought that was funny too. But all of them together, obviously really good. And Diggle having his problems, having to basically break up with his girlfriend who was a sister-in-law. But that does actually happen a lot for people who thought that was weird. That happens all the time. But they can't work because Deadshot is still alive, and it's hard for him to focus. As he said, he couldn't hate Deadshot and love her at the same time. So he had to kind of break it off, and because he hated Deadshot so much for what he did to his brother. So I can understand that, and it is, it does suck. But we get more of Diggle, and him kind of relating to Oliver and letting him know you aren't the only one who has to deal with being two separate people. So it was really good to have that development from Diggle, and I did like that line. And obviously, anything with Diggle and Felicity and Oliver, it's always just really well done. Like all three of them have chemistry. Like when it's just two of them, like it could be Diggle and Felicity, or Diggle and Oliver, or Oliver and Felicity, or all three of them together. It's always a really good scene. It's either really well done in the comedy aspect, which is normal because of Felicity, or it's really good emotionally because they're all just really good actors, so they can just be emotional and really funny at the same time. So it's really good, and I just love having them as a team. So it was great to see them all together. Once again, because obviously we got that, and we're gonna keep having it since they're all a team now. But I just enjoyed it in this episode because it was also emotional and not just all comedy. Something else we got, of course, Roy sort of inching his way into becoming Red Arrow. Like he completely destroyed the car, which apparently he stole, which I thought was kind of funny. But he was trying to help save those guys from the motorcycle gang, or I guess the triads on the motorcycles, and he just destroyed that car. And then he goes through all this stuff, dealing with Speedy, because I can't think of her actual name for some reason. And she's gonna break up with him because she doesn't want to lose him, because she obviously could, because he's gonna get himself killed doing that stuff. So he goes through this deal, and then Oliver, once he finds out that Roy's looking for him pretty much as the vigilante, he goes to him and says, "You can be my intel. Like you're not trained." I swear I heard that line somewhere before where he said, like you can take a beating and there's a difference. And I think that might have been in Arrow, and it might have been season 1, but I'm thinking that was from like a completely different show. And that is true. Taking a beating and being able to fight, completely separate things. So he gets Roy to basically calm down as far as trying to be a superhero, and he says, to do my job I do need intel, and you can be that intel. So of course we didn't get him just saying, hey, it's me, Oliver, I'm going to train you how to fight, because that would be far too amazing, for the second episode. But at some point, but they did at least give us that. So, Roy is inching his way into becoming Red Arrow, unless he does end up becoming Speedy, and he kind of takes the name from Oliver's sister, from Thea, there it is. Unless he takes her nickname and uses it as his hero name, which I could also see that happening. So he could still end up as Speedy. But either way, they gave us a little tease, and he's working his way into being a hero, which would be amazing when we finally get that. And I love to see how that plays out with Diggle and Felicity too, because I hadn't even thought of it until just now, how they'd feel, pretty much about bringing a teenager in to fight crime. So it would be cool to see that when it happens, of course. But for this episode, they gave us the hint. He threw that arrow like crazy. I was like, he just has these unbelievable skills. He's like an amazing driver and all this crazy stuff. It's kind of funny, but obviously that'll work really well when they get into him actually being Red Arrow. But for now, we got the hint. Obviously it was great. They at least gave us that, and I'm sure it'll pretty much only be that for the whole season. And then season 3, they'll actually get into some other stuff. But hopefully, Oliver will kind of try to train him in a inconspicuous way, where he's like, hey, we don't hang out as much, we don't really get to know each other, you're dating my sister, you have to be able to defend her, something simple like that. And he'll be able to train him to at least fight, if he thinks he'll go out and do his own thing anyway. So that'll be cool if they do that. But even if they don't, it's good just to have it the way it is right now. So enjoyed the episode. They have the special guest Michael Jai White. For anyone who doesn't know him, he does know martial arts. He's I'm trying to think of the name. He's like somebody he's Jax in the Mortal Kombat like TV show. I can't think of what it's actually called, but if you look it up on YouTube or I guess on here, it's by Machinima. He's Jax in that. Um, I can't even think of the character's name, but he has a movie that also had a TV show on Adult Swim. It was a cartoon. It was really funny. I don't know why it's not on anymore, but Black Dynamite, that's what it was, and he was the main character in that. He was Black Dynamite. Great movie, great cartoon, and that guy he actually is like a black belt in martial arts. He's in a bunch of other movies too. He's in like a lot of dramatic stuff that I don't watch, but he does know like actual stuff, and he came in, and I just thought that was pretty cool. He didn't do as much martial arts as I was hoping, because like I know he knows a lot of martial arts, but he had like the whole Dragon Claw things, and he was fighting Oliver, and he was basically just like deflecting every single arrow until he actually got hit by the like electric arrow, which was kind of cool. But it was cool just to have him in the episode, and the villain, whose name, of course, I can't remember hers, but she was really cool too. I feel like she did more in this episode than she did in like anything last season, as far as like actually throwing the knives and stuff. Like when she first threw it through the truck and killed the two guys, like that seemed like just bigger than anything she did before, where she was pretty much just stabbing people. And there was one scene when they showed her after she had already killed the guy. I think she was just like stabbing him. That's what it looked like to me. She could have just been searching him, but it looked like she was just like stabbing him like down his body, which I thought was kind of weird. But I thought she was really good in this episode too, and we got to see her fight Diggle, which I really enjoyed, because Diggle doesn't really do too much like hand to hand combat unless it's actually just training with Oliver. So I really enjoyed that, because it wasn't just him shooting you. Like she kind of knocked the gun out of his hand, and then they had to just flat out fight. So I really enjoyed seeing Diggle get some hand to hand action. But the first thing I thought when she was on the truck, like when he lifted his mask, the first thing I thought was she was gonna know who he is, and like once she sees him like out in the world, she'll know who that is. But she did get arrested, so I guess she won't really see him. And obviously, even if she sees him on TV and does recognize him, who's gonna bother listening to like one of the most wanted criminals, in the triad? So I guess no matter how it works, she's in prison and it's actually fine. But I thought that was really weird that it kind of worked out that way, just because I thought it could really come into the show and just make it really crazy and suspenseful, figuring out, when in the world is she gonna like see him on TV or something and figure out, Oliver is the vigilante. But that could still play out in some way, and it would be amazing if it did. But for now, just her in this episode I thought was really good. And like I said, her versus Diggle, really cool fight. And Diggle was gonna kill her, which I thought was interesting. And Oliver of course came in and tied her up, so that didn't happen. But it was a really good episode overall. Like I said, the introduction of the Alderman was really good. Comedy was really good. Action was great. Little tease at the end with Roy, inching his way in as a superhero is really good too. And finding out why, of course, I can't think of anybody's name. I suck at that. But basically, Oliver's ex-girlfriend, finding out why she hates the vigilantes so much, I thought was really well done too. And we find out the main reason she kind of just like flipped on him is because she found Tommy when he died, and she saw Oliver leaving as a vigilante, of course. And him not being able to save Tommy is, what caused her to become so angry at the vigilante, because she felt he was having a useless fight with, Tommy, or, well, Tommy Merlin, I guess, Merlin. And, it was just interesting. I thought that wasn't good enough, to be completely honest. Like I enjoyed the fact that we got to see it, because I felt like I was missing something when, the season premiered and she kind of just hated him. And I was thinking, like, why does she hate him so much? Like, did I forget something that they showed in the last season? But it was just because she found Tommy and, saw Oliver leaving. And like I said, I don't feel like that's a good enough reason. I feel like she blames him far too much for Tommy dying. But I can also understand that because, she was so close to Tommy. So it does kind of balance out in a way. But I guess thinking of it where I'm not in this situation where like I didn't lose one of my best friends who I've known like my whole life, I kind of see it as like she's kind of overreacting, but thinking about it, like in actuality, it does make a little bit of sense. It actually makes a lot of sense. I won't say a little, but it does make perfect sense that she'd be so mad about that. That Oliver said all these things to her, like I protect the people who need it, and then he's like fighting someone off somewhere else while the glades are just being destroyed, and he's not saving like any of these people, and of course he can't because he was fighting, and he's only one person anyway. But we got to see why she doesn't trust the vigilante anymore, and then the end of the episode, which was amazing personally. She basically traps him, so who knows how in the world he gets out of that crowd. But all they really gave us was him, as far as the preview, was him basically saying, I'm not your enemy. And then it was like all the other footage was like his mom and then flashback stuff. And it looked like in the flashback he was in a jail, which made me think they caught him. But that was, then I realized like his hair was like really long and stuff. So I think he got caught in the flashback, so he's in jail, and I'm sure that'll somehow play into it, of course. And in the flashback in this episode, since I completely skipped over that, also really well done, and it tied into, it's kind of the aftermath of him sort of losing it on the one guy, and him, trying to figure out, once again, who is he as a person, now that he's, been on the island for so long. And something that Slade does that I thought was really interesting, when he saw Oliver and Shadow basically just sitting with each other. It kind of looked like he was jealous at first, and that could still be the case. But then it seemed like once he actually started to talk to Oliver in the next scene when he said, you can't get too attached to her because she's a distraction, which he's been saying the whole time. It made me think, oh, he was looking, he looked that way because it was like they're gonna basically get each other killed, and then I'm just gonna be stuck by myself. So it wasn't really him being jealous of Oliver. I think now that it was more like they're like mostly because Shadow's gonna get Oliver killed. I feel like he doesn't even care about her too much, and I guess there's not much he could really say to her. But he did he saved Oliver, and he kind of trained him until Shadow came along. So I think he feels a bit more responsible and a lot more attached to Oliver compared to her. And plus they're both guys, so it's a little easier to have that connection compared to him being connected to Shadow. But I think that's what it was now. He just feels like, she's gonna end up getting him killed, and he's not really too attached to Shadow, and he'll end up blaming her for Oliver getting killed. So I think that's what it is right now. And so I think that's gonna kind of play into something where, Slade might end up being really distant from Shadow, which might kind of screw up their whole team dynamic because it's just the three of them against this random group who for some reason was looking for Japanese World War II skeletons in this cave. So who knows how it'll play out, and hopefully it doesn't play out that way because it'll just make me really anxious that thinking like one of them is going to end up dead, because that's all I worry about every time they have a problem during the flashback is like Shadow or Slade, one of them is going to die off. And that's like the last thing I want in this show, is for one of them to get killed, because even though it's in the past, they can still be alive. And like I said last week, I really want them in the present at some point. So hopefully there won't be too much turmoil, and no one will get killed, but it would make for great television. But either way, just to wrap this all up because I've been talking so long, comment below, let me know what you thought of this episode. Favorite parts, least favorite parts. How do you think Oliver's gonna basically, I won't say beat the Alderman, but how do you think Oliver's gonna find his way into the Alderman's good graces, and overall the city's good graces, now that he's kind of screwed up at the whole event that he was throwing? Comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.